In last week's Lake District video, I took you on a hike up a mountain called Low Fell and showed you around Ambleside. In this video, we will go on a hike around a lake called Tarn Hows after we first take a look at the village of Grasmere. More adventures we shared with our American friends Joel and Krista. But before I show you Tarn Hows or Grasmere, it's time for another quick language lesson. A tarn is a small mountain lake, specifically one that may have been formed by a melting glacier. Here in the Lake District, the lakes are not usually called lakes, but rather waters, or meres, or tarns. Both mere and tarn have ancient language origins. A mere is a shallow lake. The Saxon word for sea was mere, and the Old Norse word tjorn meant pond. I showed you a bit of Grasmere in my gingerbread video, but I wanted to show more views of the village in this video to wrap up our Lake District vlogs. Grasmere is a fun place to visit, albeit a bit crowded during the summer. Like Ambleside, Grasmere is a hiker's paradise, and there are all kinds of hiking stores and hiking advice and instructions everywhere you go. One famous person whose presence is felt as you wander through Grasmere is Beatrix Potter. Beatrix and her husband lived in the area, and like Ambleside and elsewhere in the Lake District, you can get Peter Rabbit and other Beatrix Potter-related souvenirs in shops all over around here. Grasmere has a strong linkage to the famous Romantic poet William Wordsworth. He lived in the village for many years in the early 1800s and immortalized the area in his poetry. He described Grasmere as the loveliest spot that man hath ever found. His home, Dove Cottage on the edge of Grasmere, is now a museum. We didn't stop by that museum, but we did visit the Wordsworth graves in St. Oswald's churchyard. In this area of the cemetery are buried William, his wife Mary, their children, and William's beloved sister Dorothy. The village school was opened in 1630, and Wordsworth and his wife and sister taught there. They believed that universal education was important for all children, so that economically disadvantaged children could escape poverty and have greater opportunities in life. The old school is now the famous gingerbread shop. More on that later. After visiting the Wordsworth graves, we also went inside to see the church. The parish church is dedicated to St. Oswald of Northumbria, who is believed to have preached on this site around 642 AD. I'll be honest, it wasn't the most beautiful church I'd ever seen from the outside, but it did have a lovely tall tower and a unique font and some nice stained glass windows inside. But my favorite part was the beams in the ceiling. The timbers were beautiful. Also, I love snapping photos of these pretty Women's Institute flags when I see them in parish churches. So we enjoyed our little visit to Wordsworth's daffodil garden, although daffodils are not in season, so we just basically saw rhododendron. One more Grasmere celebrity to mention is Sarah Nelson, the woman who invented Grasmere gingerbread in the 1850s. The little shop selling this legendary treat boasts the longest queues in the village. Krista and I filmed a taste test video of us trying the world-famous gingerbread, and I'll link it in the description. Ian and I also discovered a fabulous bakery down the road called Baldry's. Ian decided to go there so he could try their sticky ginger cake, which is also featured in the aforementioned gingerbread taste test video. But the real reason I wanted to go to Baldry's was for breakfast. Interestingly, this cafe is named after William Baldry. He and his wife Louise taught in the village school after Wordsworth's death. He was an avid photographer and athlete who had a long-lasting impact on Grasmere. We read about his life as we enjoyed our delicious vegetarian version of a full English breakfast. The toast that came with our breakfast is tremendous. This is like thick-cut homemade toast with proper butter. This breakfast looks massive and interesting because I think in addition to toast, they gave us fried bread and hash browns. Those I know are two controversial and usually interchangeable items. So what is your opinion of including fried bread and hash browns in a full English? Please let me know your opinions in the comments. I'll tell you one opinion I have, and that is that condiments are king. And these local Lake District versions of tomato ketchup, called Keswick ketchup, and brown sauce, called Cumberland spice sauce, were absolutely scrumptious. I wish I could buy them in Gloucestershire. As a side note, the toilets at Baldry's are interesting. They have a vintage Thomas Crapper theme in them. If you, like me, previously believed the well-known tale that Thomas Crapper invented the flushing toilet, I'm sorry to tell you that's not actually true. Thomas was a sanitary engineer who was born in Thorn, South Yorkshire, and built the first bathroom showroom in the world in 1866. But that was about 300 years after Queen Elizabeth's godson, Sir John Harrington, invented the first flushing toilet, and nearly a century after Alexander Cummings obtained the first patent for a flush toilet. Okay, that's enough water closet history. Time to leave Grasmere and head to Tarn Hows. On the way out of Grasmere, we spotted this house that Ian called a gingerbread house. Appropriate for Grasmere, I suppose. But seriously, look how pretty it is with all the rhododendron behind it. As we continue down the street, we admire the extremely moss-covered and fern-lined old stone walls which border this road. And it kept getting fernier. I guess that's the benefit of all this rain. Lush green foliage. Speaking of foliage, this stretch of road had wisteria hanging over the left wall, and more moss, and lots more ferns. And lots more hikers. This place continues to be packed with tourists, even on the outskirts of town. You really have to drive with care. Speaking of driving with care, this is the sign I saw a bit later as we headed toward Langdale. That's enough to kick my motion sickness paranoia into high gear. But look at these gorgeous views of Langdale. Totally worth the drive. Our car was packed full of fans of stacked stone walls who really loved this wall we spotted. Quite a lovely pattern in it. And here's another photo without the windscreen and windscreen wipers in the way. I just love seeing all the homes built in this area from local stone. Now we are headed to Glenmary Bridge Car Park to start our hike around Tarn Hows. But first, let's see what driving adventures we experienced along the way. When you can't go forward, you go backward. Even though we're on the wrong side of the road. They're getting by. Okay, use the wipers. Yeah, this is not a good area to encounter oncoming traffic. We are getting closer to Tarn Hows now, and we have spotted some of my favorite cows. I'm going to call them the Tarn Hows cows, but I usually call them Oreo cows, but they're really called belted Galloways. There's an Oreo cow in the middle of the road and oncoming traffic, and how are we going to navigate this? This is not good. Oh my. Is there room for them to get by?
Yeah.
We soon learned that the cows had scurried out of the way of the cars up this grassy knoll. They were really funny to watch. This cow was mooing like crazy until I started filming them. I love how it has just one white foot. Pretty cute. We're here at Tarn Hows. We were obviously not the only ones on this bank holiday weekend who decided to hike the Tarn, despite the weather being as wet as an otter's pocket. Here we are, getting our first glimpse of Tarn Hows. along the hiking path. Lots of mossy rocks and ferns. And I'm trying out my brand new hiking sticks. This way to waterfalls, apparently. And here are the beautiful waterfalls. Waterfall number 1. And waterfall number 2. The big one. Hiking back up to the Tarn. Tarn Hows was purchased by Beatrix Potter. Isn't that funny? She bought a lake and then she donated it to the National Trust. We are leaving the Lake District and heading to the Scottish borders to stay in a castle and have adventures up north. So stay tuned for all that fun. And in the meantime, I invite you to check out this video of our Grasmere gingerbread taste tests, as well as last week's Lake District video of Ambleside and hiking Low Fell, in case you missed it. Thanks so much for watching this video, and do something good in the world today.